Welcome to Wake and Bake from San Diego,
where sports betting
meets marijuana. I'm Leaf.
And I'm Lo.
And here's Chaz.
Hey, thanks, guys. And if you're looking for more winners in your life, and really, who isn't? You've come to the right place because it is More Winners with Mo from the Mo Radio Show. Mo, as always, we appreciate your time. Mostly, though, we appreciate your winners, and you've given them to us every week for, I don't know, we're going on 9 years now, maybe 10 years. I don't remember. It's a long, long time. But we're going to have a lot of fun with this one, particularly because we got some teams we're going to talk about that we can make fun of, and other teams we can talk about that are doing pretty good. So, in terms of last week, any highlights that you remember, things that you say, you know what, that was good?
Well, the end of the Bills-Vikings game was fantastic. The Vikings looked like they had lost it. Then they looked like they had won it. Then the Bills tied. Then they looked like they were about to lose it again, and then they won. That was a fantastic game. And then, Jeff Saturday with the best winning percentage ever of a head coach in the NFL at 1,000% right now.
That was a great win for them. Of course, boy, the Lord picked a good team to give him to because the Raiders look like that guy should go back to New England now.
Yeah, I mean, it felt, when he spurned the Colts at the altar, a few years ago, most people were upset. I was not, because he was terrible in Denver, and now we see again that he's terrible in Vegas. He's not a head coach. I mean, this guy learned at the feet of Bill Belichick and got beat by a guy who's never coached a college or pro football game, any type of coaching ever. And he got beat by Jeff Saturday. Now, if you're a Colts fan, you know that you don't have a team that could do anything in the playoffs. So I was hoping, honestly, that they would lose. I wanted them to lose, and let's get a draft pick and draft a franchise quarterback. But doesn't look like Mr. Saturday has that on his plate. He wants to win some football games.
Well, you know what? We've never done a Colts championship football, souvenir football. That would be a good one. That would be a good one. The last time they won, we hadn't done it yet.
I can't wait. I'm waiting to place a big order of Colts championship footballs.
There you go. All right. So, yeah, you know what? It's funny because we talked about the coach being, passed over, a couple of the guys on the team that had head coaching experience, but he's a player too. So that makes it a little easier. It's not like he's a guy from the offices upstairs.
No, I mean, when you spent 13 years with Peyton Manning and a guy who prepares like that and is, basically a head coach on the field, you got to feel like someone would rub off on you when he's got his hands under your nuts for 13 years. So you would feel that, some stuff would rub off. And they were a very well-coached team with Tony Dungy, with a lot of, Hall of Fame players. So, obviously he's coming there and he's fired some guys up, and sometimes, not that Frank Reich was a bad coach or a terrible person. He's probably one of the nicest guys ever in the NFL. Sometimes it just takes a new voice. After so long, guys just get tired. It takes a new voice.
Yeah, and again, he's got a ring and he's a winner and he's a player and he's the center. The centers, they know everything.
They do, because he's the guy that calls out all the plays and all the protections. So he's seen it from every aspect. So, I think it turned out better than most Colts fans hope for. My wife will wear her Jeff Saturday jersey again this Friday, like she did last Friday. Big Jeff Saturday fan. So, at this point, they're going to have a mediocre draft pick, so we might as well cheer them on and hope they win some games.
No doubt about it. And we're gonna get to them in the second segment. We're gonna talk about the Eagles bouncing back from getting whacked, and we'll see what happens. But the first game we're going to talk about is the weather, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at 6 feet of snow coming up in Buffalo this weekend. So the NFL decided today to make the change, and they're moving the Buffalo-Cleveland game indoors to Ford Field, since the Lions will be on the road. So when they do that, it always makes for an interesting crowd, because they sell the tickets a little cheaper. A lot of people who aren't fans of the team wind up showing up. But, it's a relatively not a bad drive for Buffalo or for Cleveland fans. So it could be an interesting mix of folks. My wife and I were talking earlier that we may try to pick up some tickets and head up there and watch the Buffalo-Cleveland game in Detroit this weekend.
How long would it take you to get there? Like 3 hours?
Right? Yeah, 3 hours.
Yeah, that's like going to L.A. for us. So, yeah, no doubt about it. The only other aspect of it is, though, it may not be too far normally, but it might be a little too far when there's 6 feet of snow on the ground.
Right. And here's the interesting thing about this weekend. If you're Cleveland, this is probably a good thing for you because Deshaun Watson returns this week, and playing in 6 feet of snow might not have been the best way for him to start. If you're Cleveland. So I think for both of these offenses, which Cleveland should be better now, they've got the NFL rushing leader, and touchdown leader in Nick Chubb. Josh Allen had a little bit of a rough game, a bunch of red zone turnovers that he's not used to doing. So this could be a good thing for this offense playing on this turf in Detroit. It could be a fun up and down game.
Give me a final score.
Oh, wow. This one's going to be a little harder because I don't know what to expect from Deshaun Watson. Kid hasn't played in a year and a half, gone through a lot of stuff. You haven't got to see him in practice because he couldn't be at the facility. They've kept it very hush-hush what they've done. I'm going to say 42-38 Buffalo.
Wow, that would be a great game to drive. When we get back from break, we're going to talk a couple more games with Mo from the Mo Radio Show here on More Winners with Mo on Wake and Bake.
In a world where most cannabis gummies are hashy, melty, or just plain gross, one brand will rise up to forever change what an edible can be. Vegan and gluten-free ingredients, 30-plus terpenes, and a melt-proof recipe star in Wana. Not all edibles are created equal. Now in theaters. Dispensaries.
Welcome back to More Winners with Mo here on Wake and Bake. Now, Mo, we talked about the game. So we got two games where the Easy Sports Data is going to put everything as a way. We got the snow game that they've moved, and we've got, of course, Monday Night Football in Mexico City. But we're going to talk about the Eagles and the fact that the champagne is finally off of ice down in Miami, even though, you know what, you saw those guys. 1972 was a long time ago. You saw them when they had their ceremony early in the year. They're getting old. 50 years is a long time. And those guys, they didn't have state-of-the-art health care like we have now in the NFL.
No, and, to me, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm just fine with what happened Monday night. As the season wears on, I went through this with the Colts a few years back when they were 13-0. We saw the pressure get to the Patriots when they run out in the regular season. I think it becomes a story. That becomes the weight around your neck when you're chasing that undefeated record. So to me, if I'm an Eagles fan, I'm happy that this loss is there. It's done. The big thing for the Eagles, they'd had 2 turnovers the entire season. They had 4 Monday night against the Commanders. So I think it's a good thing for the Eagles. I think they move forward. They made 2 big signings. This past week, the biggest being Ndamukong Suh, who will join that defensive line for the Eagles. The rich continue to get richer, and that could be a tough game for game number 2 for Jeff Saturday and the Colts come Sunday.
Yeah. So what do you think? They got a shot? They're getting a touchdown.
I do. I think with Matt Ryan back at quarterback, as long as they can protect him, they've got a shot. He's starting to build some chemistry with the receivers. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor can build in the game that he had last week, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Then you've got to hope the defense shows up. If I think they'll take a look at what the Commanders did Monday night, and try to play something similar type of defense and keep those wide receivers under control. They have young, fast linebackers, which helps when you've got a running quarterback. You've got guys who can chase down the quarterback. I think that helps a lot. I think it could be interesting. It's not one of those ones where I think it's going to be a 7-point or less loss. I think it's one of those games where the Colts either going to win the football game or they're going to get blown out. I don't think there's any really medium here. I think it's going to be one of those 2 extremes.
Yeah, and then that's really normally what happens when you have a winning team and a losing team, and they meet. So,
yeah, I think I'm going to take the Colts and lay the points just because, 7's still a lot of points in the NFL.
Yeah, and we saw the Eagles. I mean, it's not like what we saw for 4 quarters was a shock. We had seen that in the second half in about 4 or 5 of their games where they just stopped playing football.
Yeah, and the Colts have a decent secondary, and again, I think with the fast, I know, of course, Shaq Leonard's out on IR, but, they have some fast linebackers and they've got after the quarterback the last couple of games. So there's a shot. that the Colts definitely have a shot, but I'll take the Colts and get the touchdown. Why not?
All right, and then Sunday night, Kansas City and the Chargers. They already played. Actually, they played on, I think, a Thursday night, if I remember, back early in the season. So another prime time they got flexed up. What do you think?
Well, you keep waiting for the Chargers offense to get going. Justin Herbert was phenomenal last year. Almost 5,000 yards. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen being out has not helped it at all. They focused the defenses, opposing defenses, to focus on the running game and Austin Eckler, which has made it harder for him at times to get going. I know Herbert's nursed some injuries. San Diego's defense doesn't look as good as we all thought it was going to be, and I think that hurts us some too. Patrick Mahomes just keeps getting better and doing it without Tyreek Hill. I think this one could be closer. They're going to get Mike Williams back, hopefully, and Keenan Allen. They didn't practice, leading up to it, but they should be back. I'm going to take. It's hard not to take Patrick Mahomes. I'm taking Mahomes. I'm going to lay the points. I think the Chiefs win this football game.
That's a lot of points, but when it comes to Kansas City, you know what? Is there ever too many points?
No, and there's no home field advantage either, so I think that makes it a little easier. And Kansas City fans, let's be honest, like a good college team, they travel very well. So, I think it's going to be a Kansas City win. Patrick Mahomes loves showing out on national TV for sure. So I think we see a few wrinkles in Andy Reid's offense, in this game, no doubt about it.
It's a big game too, because it cushions them. This is it. They win this game, and they're winning that division pretty much.
Yeah, I think so, because let's be honest, Denver's terrible. The Raiders are terrible. The Chargers are the only ones that really have a shot at them, and they've been mediocre at best. But you keep waiting every week. Is this going to be the week, like we said, that Justin Herbert breaks out? And sooner or later, I'm going to get tired of waiting. I'm not going to know. But it's hard, man, in the NFL when you don't have your top receivers. Then they could just focus on a couple
Keenan Allen's not just a top receiver. He's a pretty good receiver. As top receivers go, he's a top receiver.
And Mike Williams may be better. Young kid who can get up there. It's hard when you lose those guys, but if those guys are back, it makes it a lot more exciting game to watch.
No doubt about it. All right, buddy, as always, we appreciate your time, and more importantly, your winners with Mo from the Mo Radio Show here on More Winners with Mo on Wake and Bake.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
CFL, let them know.
It doesn't matter what time of year it is. There's always going to be a decent return on your investment when you join Saturdays in Canada with Blackhawk Wes here on Wake and Bake. Now, Wes, we're going to give him one more shot because it's the Super Bowl of Canadian football. We're going to play the intro because I love this intro.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
CFL, let them know.
Now, we may not be playing that intro during the rest of the year between now and June when we're talking about, the Blackhawks, or we're talking about the March Madness. We're still going to be Saturdays in Canada, though, because, again, they get us through. And if you've never sat by the pool and watched Canadian football, I don't know what to tell you. You really should try it. Maybe you won't have to take as many of your meds if you sit by the pool more and watch Canadian football. But it's the Grey Cup. Now, the first thing we got to talk about is last week, because I almost never go against you. I was telling my son the other day, when I get your plays from John, from GMF Sports and Blackhawk West from 151 Sports Investing, and they're against me, I stop. I don't care if I'm in the middle of flipping an omelet. I say, Vicky, grab the pan. She can't flip omelets. As you know, because you're a chef, the flipping thing ain't hard once you accept the fact that occasionally you're going to miss and it's going to end up on the floor. As long as you get over that fact, you're going to be okay. And I go and I look again and I see what's going on, especially when you guys are on opposite sides, which doesn't really happen as often as you would think, because, we're talking week 11 now with the NFL, and I've looked at, 55 of your plays. You've only been against each other, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times. But I could not bet against Winnipeg last weekend, and I not only bet him, I made him my biggest play of the weekend. I had more money on Winnipeg than I had on any college game and than I had on any pro game, and then they muffed that punt, and it looked bad, and then after that, it was just Winnipeg showing why they're in the Grey Cup again.
The third straight Grey Cup, and you were on the right side of it. A three-peat is hard to do, but Coach O'Shea has got Winnipeg rolling. They're 15-3 this year. I just thought going into last week's game, and as I said it on the show, they hadn't played meaningful football in a long time. So I expected them to be a little rusty, and the momentum in that locker room of BC, and it wasn't a blowout. I mean, it was 28-20. I mean, that's a touchdown differential. I mean, that's a touchdown in a rouge or a single is
I love those rouges. They really are the coolest thing.
Well, when you're on the right side of that hook, when you're on the wrong side of it, it's you're ready to break something. But I mean, and I'm with you on, John and I have talked, over some beers in Vegas, and when we're against each other, we're both equally as nervous. I mean, that's the mutual respect we have for one another and how we pick them. When we send the plays in our group and we're both on the same page, it's I won. We're cashing. I mean, there's got to be. We're probably 85% when the two of us agree on something.
Oh, I that's a number I would be comfortable with using that number. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, so let's do this. Before we go and talk Grey Cup, we're going to talk a little bit of the future, our future together here on Saturdays in Canada, and then we'll come back from break and we'll go heavy on Winnipeg, Toronto, because you're still live on Toronto 4-1. So 4-1 is you're not getting 4-1 on the money line on Toronto this week. That's for sure.
No, and the way I talk on the Discord page, and the way that I do futures, I'm not a fan of in the NFL laying down a big future bet in August, and I'm not. I don't go about it that way. I will pay it as a tax throughout the season, and then get a little bonus at the end. So about 6 weeks ago, I had this feeling that Toronto was getting hot at the right time. It's still a tournament, and so every time I cashed a ticket, I took a certain percentage of that, a low percentage. And, if you're a $10 person, you throw $1 on it. And I had done that on almost all of my action for college football. And, I'd been doing that for about 6 weeks. So you reach a place where, 10% of a 10% tax on a 4-1 ROI. And it still, was 4-1 as recently as last week, because there was a popular opinion that BC was second in that running if Winnipeg were to go down. So I'm looking at a really nice future bet, but I would advise any of the listeners that's the way you go about a future. You pay it as a tax instead of laying the large chunk, because you laid a large chunk, you lost a big amount of money that could make you more money.
Well, you can't play with it.
Right.
Future, and that's why I when I do futures, I do the same thing you do. I do it either little bitties, a lot of them, or I wait until it's closer to. I don't mind if it goes from 8-1 to 4-1, because I don't want my funds tied up, a large chunk of my funds tied up. I could do an awful lot of damage with $10 over the course of a Friday night college football, because I love West Coast football, and they're on Friday nights, like the Aztecs are played last night. And so giving that money on something that's going to happen 5 months from now. But speaking of 5 months from now, so what are you thinking? I mean, we got we're off Thanksgiving week. Then we come back in December. 2 of the weeks we're off in a row. We're not going to do a show. Christmas Eve is and New Year's Eve. We're not doing shows for those 2 weeks. So when we come back, I mean, we got NFL playoffs, but when do you start looking at hockey? When do you start looking at college basketball? And we're going to pick that up after break, because if you want to win money, it's called 151 Sports Investing for a reason. You got to tune in to Saturdays in Canada here on Wake and Bake, and we will be right back. It's football football season, ladies and gentlemen, and PropSwap is the best way to lock in the action right now. This time last year, Cincinnati was 300 to 1 odds. Thousands of prop swappers cashed in on Cincy just by buying their tickets on PropSwap early and then flipping for a profit when Burrow and company got hot. Now is your chance to do it again. With thousands of buyers across the country, you'll always get the most amount of money for your bet on PropSwap. So hurry to PropSwap while it's early and grab a ticket or two. The odds are always the highest right now. It really does pay to get in early. Go to PropSwap.com or download the free PropSwap app today. PropSwap is where America buys and sells sports bets. If you listen to Muhammad from 151 Sports Investing, he told you how much better the odds are on PropSwap than what is being offered at your local sports book. And look at me. I had UConn. I went for two. So instead of getting just one ticket with UConn in the future for the Final Four, I got two, sold one on PropSwap, and when they lost, I ended up having a positive ROI on a national championship future ticket where the team lost. Only on PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Welcome back to Saturdays in Canada here on Wake and Bacon. Though it is the Super Bowl of Canadian football, it is the Grey Cup, Saturdays in Canada isn't going anywhere. And we were just discussing with Wes, when does he start hopping on? We looked at last night, or this week, not it wasn't last night. We looked this week at a Warriors team, and we talked about how poorly they're playing, and they have, they're setting records for defending champions losing on the road, but it's only a dozen games in. College basketball just started. The NHL's a little farther ahead, but not too much. When do you start betting on when? So
pretty much after the start of the new year is when I'll really start digging into the NHL. I'm already looking at basketball. I'll tell you, you and John have got me more interested in basketball. 3 years ago, I was not a basketball guy, but I'm already invested in college basketball and NBA basketball. And in fact, I'm more into the NBA right now. And, the way that I'm approaching the NBA is math. I'm not studying personnel. I'm not paying attention to tendencies. I will pay attention to who's sitting and who's not. But, just round numbers. If the first half, you've seen, I've sent over some quarter one unders. Well, if the quarter one goes under and the first half is, say, 110 over under before the game tips off, well, if the quarter one goes under, well, now that first half is going to drop to, say, 104. Well, now I got a 7-point discount, and I'm going to follow the math, and I'm just going to go over because the odds makers thought that it was going to be 110. Now I only got to go over 104. So I am catching a basketball game, on a Tuesday or a Thursday night, and most of it's live action. But after the turn of the year is heavy hockey, and then we get into probably about February is when most of my focus is on college basketball, just to get to know the players and how they're doing in scenarios and travel and different defenses and things like that. And man, that March time of year where you got tournaments during the daytime, and of course I'm on Discord, so our Discord group is focused on the stock market, but I got the stock market on one screen and I got the MAC on one screen and the Conference USA basketball. So I mean, that's kind of the way I go. And then come, 5 months from now, come April, I'm studying CFL for preseason, what I'm going to look at and what's going to happen. And, the CFL is funny. It's going to take a back seat on Sunday other than to fans like us. It's going to kick off at 5 o'clock. The Chiefs Chargers have been flexed up to 7 o'clock. But come April, man, there's no football more important than the CFL because it's the next one we're going to watch.
Yeah, and it really is. It is. And it's the Grey Cup. So, I mean, we're talking about a team going for a three-peat. I can't remember. Has the NFL ever had a team win it 3 years in a row?
I don't believe the NFL has.
I think that's a pretty impressive feat.
Yep, we've seen it in hockey.
Yep.
We've seen it in hockey. I know that we've seen it out of the Montreal Canadiens, and then in the 80s we saw a four-peat out of the Islanders.
Right. Yeah. And of course, the Yankees won every year for 18 years, so that doesn't
Right.
count in baseball. But so what are you seeing? Because I honestly have not looked yet. But it's Saturdays in Canada is beautiful when it's only Sunday in Canada. Really, you got one day, one game. It will be a big part of my weekend, though.
And we really don't have a lot to compare these two teams. They played on the 4th of July, Canada Day, and Independence Day to us, and south of the border. But it was a 1-point differential in that game. And Collaros threw 2 interceptions. I'm sorry, Collaros threw an interception. Bethel Thompson threw 2 interceptions. Toronto came back on them. The difference in that game, though, is Toronto's a different team in Toronto. If that game's in Winnipeg, there is no comeback, and it gets ugly. Zach Collaros, for the quarterback for Winnipeg, he's got an ankle, and nobody knows to what extent that is. But Toronto is a different type of defense. What Winnipeg went against last week, BC's defense is very opportunistic. When Nathan Rourke is scoring 3 touchdowns in the first quarter for BC, it's a completely different type of defense. You're pinning your ears back and you're getting after the quarterback. There's this storyline with Andrew Harris, who plays for Toronto. He's without a doubt going into the CFL Hall of Fame. He's top 10 all time in yardage. He's one of the great Canadian running backs. He won the last 2 Grey Cups as RB1 for Winnipeg, and he's a running back for Toronto. So that there's kind of an emotional piece there. This is a 5.5-point game. It's hard to make a living betting against Winnipeg. It really is. So me personally, and again, this is to hedge my investments. I'm pretty deep into my Toronto future plays. So if Toronto wins the game, I win that. So the play,
but that is a money line play. Of course, future bets are money line plays.
That is a money line play. So the play for me here on this game is I'm laying the 5.5, and I'm going to put 1 unit on Winnipeg, and I'll cash if Winnipeg wins and covers. I don't think Winnipeg's going to win by 1. If Winnipeg wins, it's going to be because they've completely dominated. Toronto is healthy. They have a healthy receiving core. McLeod Bethel Thompson he didn't get enough credit for being this year possibly the top performing quarterback in the CFL. So, and the last 2 Grey Cups that Winnipeg has gone into, they played against a really inept offense with Hamilton. And this is a hard one to compare because they haven't really played each other. And Toronto's just beaten up on a bad division. I mean, they've smoked Hamilton a few times. They smoked Ottawa. And but God, that Winnipeg defense is something. So I think if you're tuning into this game for the first time this year, the smart move is to lay the points and take Winnipeg. Now, there's a cool prop that I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing draw at halftime, and then I'm going to be playing Winnipeg wins and Toronto wins. And so it has to happen both of those ways. But if it does, so if we're draw and then Bombers win in regulation, that's plus 1,600. If we're draw and Toronto wins the game, we're plus 3,200. That's worth a play.
Yeah, so it's going to be tied at halftime, and you only one of those bets, as long as it's tied at halftime, you're cashing one of those tickets.
Exactly. So that's what I'm cheering for. And if it's draw at halftime and Toronto wins the game, you're going to read stories.
It'll be a good day in Westworld. In Westland.
It'll be a wonderful day in Casey.
All right, buddy. Thanks again for your time as always. Have a great Thanksgiving week. We'll talk, but we will not have a show next week, and we will talk soon again.
Happy Turkey Day, and always be cashing.
Yeah, always be cashing, man.
You can get championship footballs at championshipfootballs.com. They offer a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football that they sell. It's the coolest present that they'll open that day, guaranteed. There's nothing worse than trying to find the right gift for somebody that already has everything. Whether that special present is for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan or an Alabama Crimson Tide backer, maybe Gramps is a lifelong Dallas Cowboys supporter, or your brother-in-law is in LSU Tiger territory. Know a member of the Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better Father's Day gift for someone who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Send them the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Buffalo Bills or those Minnesota Vikings, well, we're sorry about that. Also, if you're a New Mexico State Aggie or a Tulane Green Wave alum, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't nice effort, you had a pretty good season footballs.com. The name is championshipfootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed.
Sports Betting Weekly.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind.
Welcome to Sports Betting Weekly here on Wake and Bake. We've got a longtime friend of the show on this morning. You know what? One of the things that I always do is I always like to remind the guests when we're dealing with the clock. You know, when we record, it's always a different time around the world where it's 4:20, and right now it's in the Canary Islands, which, you know, on a winter's day, I bet the Canary Islands is a pretty good place to be, Jonathan.
I would be there right now. That'd be fantastic. Just here in Texas now. It's not 10:20. It's 10:06 here in Texas, but you know, I've never been, and it's definitely a hot spot I want to get to. I mean, a lot of islands out there, you know, Fiji, Canary, Barbados, get out to the islands. There's probably a
No
lot
doubt
of, you know,
about it.
Jamaica, the capital. The capital
Hey,
of cannabis, probably.
I've been taking money out of Costa Rica now for about 15 years, and since the California initiatives both failed, I'm going to be taking money out of Costa Rica for a couple more years at least.
Not to get into the politics spectrum, but I actually was pretty surprised. A lot of how the election went across the country, and the fact that it didn't pass, but not by a wide margin. The initiative for legalized sports books was it was more like a 55%. I think it was a little closer, but they also had the initiative for like online, and that was like a 2-to-1.
Yeah, crushed.
That's
It was crushed.
surprising that it didn't pass by such a high.
Yeah, it was crushed. There's no doubt about it. So let's do this. First things before we do anything. Let's talk about your success this year with Vegas Insider, because remember when we first started back in the day, now we're talking years now, it was Triple J Sports, right? And you were doing it on your own, and then you started with Vegas Insider. It's gone pretty well with Vegas Insider, hasn't it?
Yeah, just you know, one thing about this industry is by going online, everybody's the best. You know, everybody hits at 90%. Everybody knows what they're doing, so it's really hard to kind of get traction if you don't have like a gimmick, or if you don't, like, I'm not great with social media. Vegas Insider is a good avenue for me to kind of look. All my players are tracked, so there's no. If you really do that, everything is tracked 100%. Games got to begin a certain time before the games. I'm not going to be, you know, a minute before the game putting in my plays. It's got to be, the research got to be done. So it's I like it because it does track everything I do. And I can go out there, look, I'm number one in baseball, and I was number one in baseball. There's no what he could have. But if you go on Twitter, I mean, everybody hits 80%, 85%. So just gaining that followers is hard, because it's like going into throwing in food in a piranha tank. Like, everybody's kind of grabbing for the same bite. It was tough. It's tough to just kind of get that. You know, I don't have a gimmick. I make plays. It's simple, right? I just make plays. That's all I do.
Yeah, and if you look at the bottom, you can follow Jonathan on Twitter at Reno_Johnny. Now, one of the things that I was so proud of you is, you know, so many years we had talked about the Orioles, and we would I would bet the Orioles with you, and they were, you know, plus 300, and they were getting whacked, but not this year. This year, how much money do you think you made just on the Baltimore Oriole games?
wasn't a bunch.
But you had quite a bit of times where you were playing them, and they were still getting plus money early in the season.
Oh yeah, and at the beginning of the year, they were plus money. I was definitely betting them a bunch, and just not as much as you would. I'm an Orioles fan, so it's really tough. When I was betting those games, I was really taking the seat and looking. I actually bet against them a couple of times. I made some money that way. Just, I'm a big fan, but I really do try to take it out of my handicap, just because it's a danger. It's a danger area there. I will say that in years past, I've typically bet the Orioles a lot, and that's because they were underdogs. And I'm an underdog better in the MLB, so when I saw a little bit of value, I would kind of hit them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the same thing next year. I think they're going to come in. I assume, I hope, I'm praying. I'm gonna be DMing management of Baltimore, but let's go pick up some arms. Let's go win this thing. I think we're built to win the next couple of years. So probably not going to be getting the value we're getting, plus 200, plus 300 on the Orioles in the next coming years. So it's going to be not going to be as heavy of a balance team for me, just because they won't have any value.
Oh, no, that's absolutely a fact. And the other thing is, and we talked to Sloppy about this with the Seahawks, if you bet them and they lose, then you get two painful things. You get the fact that your team lost, and you get the fact that you got to throw away a ticket. So that's one of the reasons where keeping the heart and the head away when you're betting on your favorite team is important. All right, when we come back from break, we're going to get some plays for the weekend from Jonathan from Vegas Insider here on Sports Betting Weekly on Wake and Bake.
In a world where most cannabis gummies are hashy, melty, or just plain gross, one brand will rise up to forever change what an edible can be. Vegan and gluten-free ingredients, 30-plus terpenes, and a melt-proof recipe star in Wana. Not all edibles are created equal. Now in theaters. Dispensaries.
You can get championship footballs at championshipfootballs.com. They offer a 100% money-back guarantee on every single souvenir football that they sell. It's the coolest present that they'll open that day, guaranteed. There's nothing worse than trying to find the right gift for somebody that already has everything. Whether that special present is for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan or an Alabama Crimson Tide backer, maybe Gramps is a lifelong Dallas Cowboys supporter, or your brother-in-law is in LSU Tiger territory. Know a member of the Baylor Alumni Association? Is there a better Father's Day gift for someone who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan? Send them the coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed. Now, if your favorite pro team is the Buffalo Bills or those Minnesota Vikings, well, we're sorry about that. Also, if you're a New Mexico State Aggie or a Tulane Green Wave alum, not much they can do. After all, the name isn't Nice Effort, you had a pretty good season footballs.com. The name is championshipfootballs.com. The coolest present they'll open that day, guaranteed.
Welcome back to Sports Betting Weekly here on Wake and Bake. We have Jonathan from San Antonio. We used to call him that, but really now he's Jonathan from Vegas Insider, because he is the number one handicapper on Vegas Insider. And if you go to the bottom, you can get his plays at Reno_Johnny on Vegas Insider. And let me tell you right now, the other day, if you followed his plays, he hit you with a 20-1 play. That's right, because he swept the board, 5 teams. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the dude sweeps the board every single day. But because he mentioned it earlier, Jonathan, on Twitter. If you didn't know any better, you would think some of those handicappers do sweep the board every single day, going 5-0 every day of the week, all year long.
Oh, if you go on Twitter, you're going to see the Twitter cappers, we call them, and they're hitting 80%, 90%. They'll have 15 plays, 13 and 2, but it's a daily thing. It's just it's very deceiving. And I always tell people this, even that friends that might want to follow my plays, and I'm very upfront. 45% losing is a successful sports bettor in the industry. And that, there's no other job in the world where you can lose or be bad at your job 45% of the time and you still get paid. That's how hard it is. That's how hard these lines are. It's sports betting. It's gambling for a reason. But yeah, we did go 5-0. I will say, I think in the last, every time I've had like a bad day and I tweeted out, I'm going to bounce back, I've bounced back in big ways. I think the last 3 times I've done that, I'm like undefeated. I think I'm like 11-0, going 3-0, 3-0, and 5-0. I don't recommend that. I just have a feeling every now and then. For the last year, I've done that 3 times, and I've just had, been doing really well. 5-0 is a great day. It was a great college sweep. I did Maction, and then some college basketball. That was, a good avenue for me to make some money.
Yeah, and that's the thing that is really important. I think that if you're not winning consistently at sports betting, okay, then what happens is you start getting angry. You're yelling at the TV or your phone, or you're yelling at coaches or players and stuff. And that's not what it's all about. What it's about is over the long haul that you have more money than when you started, and basically you get to watch sports and make a little bit of money. So that's the kind of reason, if that describes your sports betting, that's kind of reason why you should check out Jonathan on Vegas Insider, Reno Johnny, because of the fact that you don't you don't have to think about, I got to follow all these college basketball teams. I got to follow all these NFL or college football teams. The bottom line is this guy has been, for us here on Sports Betting Weekly for the last dozen years, he's been one of the best small school handicappers that we've had in both football, but mostly in basketball. So let's do this, Jonathan. Let's come up with a few plays for the weekend. Let's see if we could get these guys to cash some tickets, thanks to Reno Johnny.
So small football now in the football. It's almost done with football, and it's a tough avenue with the small schools right now, just because of the season's winding down. There's actually a game I want to kind of hit on, and that's TCU. I think the line is real. I mean, the line is begging you to take TCU. It's there's no other way, I don't think, to bet that game. They did the same thing, though, at +7 in Texas. Odds makers needed Texas big time in that game. They're going to need Baylor. It's going to be probably their biggest liability this season. They were 2.5 now. It doesn't make any sense to me. I really want to hit Baylor. I really do. I just think that they just lost last week, 31-3 at home to Kansas State. TCU just won as underdogs in Texas, 17-10. That's 7-point underdogs. Now you're only -2.5. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to probably go on the other side. It reminds me a little bit of NFL earlier in the year. I think the Rams were -2 against the Niners, and it just didn't make any sense. So everybody was on the Rams, and I went on the Niners. Last week, this is not the Texas defense. I just think that maybe, and I had said this earlier when they were in this number 6, it's going to work itself out. I think TCU will fall. Whether it's the Baylor, I think they play Iowa State next week or something. I don't know. It's next week's Big 12 championship game. They will fall eventually. And so, for me, I think that if it's, let me see, I think it's Iowa State for some reason. Yeah, Iowa State at home. This is the game that they would fall, right? They're locked in the Big 12 championship already, but they have 3 games they have to escape to get into that college football playoff. I don't believe in them. I don't think odds makers believe in them either.
All right, any other games?
We can keep going down. There's a couple games that we can look at for. I have my notes here. See UCLA, USC -2.5. This is a play based on what I thought was going to happen at the beginning of the year. Give me USC. I actually think my prediction is that TCU will fall, USC wins out, and USC will get into the college football playoff first year under the new head coach and quarterback of Caleb Williams. I believe that that's the best play on the board. I understand UCLA's at home, but have you seen their home crowd? Have you seen their home stadium? They don't get fans. It's a really weird dichotomy of how good they are this year, and the fans don't really have a tough home crowd. I think it could be different this week because you are welcoming, cross-city rival USC. I just see USC as a better team. They struggle on the defensive side of the football, which can get exposed by UCLA. But I think this is a game, it's a bigger game for them. They're going into this game knowing, hey, all we gotta do is win out. You're looking at they're probably gonna play. It's gonna probably be USC and Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, depending on what happens with Oregon and Utah. I think this is USC is going to win this game. I'm going to take them on the money line. It's -2.5. Money line's minus 125, minus 130. But that's going to be the play. My biggest play of the weekend. I just think that's a tough pass. And staying in the Pac-12, Oregon versus Utah. We talked about Oregon off that bad loss last week versus Washington, that is part of the reason why I think Washington can have a little letdown against USC. Now they're at home versus Utah. Utah comes into this season. They were number 5 overall ranking. They have definitely slowed down. They had 2 losses they probably shouldn't have taken. But they do have a good win against USC and Oregon off that loss at home as 13-point favorites versus Washington. I think they bounce back here against Utah. Bo Nix has a big night. Probably a higher scoring game. You look at maybe teasing you. I would probably tease some overs in those 2 games because you're looking at high scoring, no defense in the Pac-12. My play this weekend are, when it comes down to the later part of the year, I've done the work already. What do I think is going to happen? And I think, I called USC in the college football playoff. I called USC versus Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. So I'm kind of rolling with what I've already kind of done the work for. And that's kind of
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this is where I stood, and I'm going to stick with it. Let's talk about that USC game. It's 14 miles. Every year at the beginning of the season, we catch a couple games where the Rose Bowl is at night and the Coliseum is in the afternoon. So we go see USC play some out-of-conference school they usually whack, and then we slide over to the Rose Bowl. Now, it's 14 miles. It takes probably an hour if there's traffic. It's Los Angeles. But that's going to really help, I think, the USC side because it's not like it's an away game technically, although it's a crosstown rivalry. But because there's so much at stake this year in that game, it should be a pretty raucous crowd. And you mentioned the fact that the Pac-12 has no defense. We watched the second half start of that Oregon-Washington game. They scored like 5 touchdowns in like 7 minutes. It was just crazy-ass stuff. And it really is. When you see those teams, if USC does get into the Final Four, the playoffs, it's going to be tough for them to stop anybody. They're going to have to outscore people. And so, that's the going to be the knock on the Pac-12. It always has been, and it's going to continue to be when you have over-unders. Listen to this over-under, 76. There are some college basketball games that don't have overs of 76,
Yeah, it's last week I actually hit I think it was an under 77 or so, and it was part of these 2 teams, and it was kind of flew under. It's just the defense. That's why I think they're going to make the college football playoff, but I do think they're going to get outroared in the college football playoff. All the teams are going to face, right? Whether it's Georgia has a good offense, an even better defense. So you can't get in there without a defense. They are going to have to do something eventually. This is his first year at USC. Offense was clicking. A lot of it was he brought over Caleb Williams, which he really trusted from Oklahoma. I think eventually, you're going to get that recruiting going. The one thing I will say is he's never had a defense either, though. Oklahoma wasn't really known for their defenses. It was all offense. You got to switch, and when you look at the college football playoff and who has success, it's Bama, it's Georgia, it's LSU, typically teams that have a decent defense enough to get them through games, and their offense is so explosive enough. The Pac-12 is not that. USC is not that. They will probably get worked in the college football playoff. If TCU is the one to make it, they probably get worked over in the college football playoff. But I think that USC is definitely can score with anyone. It's just that can they stop anyone, and that's the problem they're going to have going into the college football playoff.
Did you give your internet connection at one of those Wana gummies a few minutes ago? Because it cleared up. Man, you were clear as a bell. You're fast. The first half of it was like 2 different internet connections. So good for you, man. Because you should see how clear you sound right now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be getting new internet. I think. I'm not going to put the company on blast, but they have not done what I expected them to do.
It's a battle. I was at a place the other day, and I was not being able to get service, and I was trying to get halftime bets in, and I just couldn't get any service, and it was just spinning and spinning. And sure enough, I think there's a rule: 100% of the bets you get for whatever reason are the ones that cash, aren't they?
100%. You always find yourself. I try to put my bets in. I do some live betting and stuff like that. I tried to put my bets in, and then, if it goes in, it goes in, but not worry about if I can't get it in for whatever reason. Because that just seems to be the case. If you don't put a bet in it, if you don't even think about putting in a bet, if you're not going to go put it, because I feel like that's the one that's always going to win. Just kind of look, I make my plays, I kind of ride with them, and that's it. Don't chase. A lot of people have to chase their losses. Don't do that. Definitely, that's probably the worst betting strategy you can do. Just kind of, just put your bets in, enjoy. And like I said, look, I've 4 years, I was losing money in this business. I mean, I really was losing a lot of my bets. It took me, I've been doing this now for 12 years, been doing this now successfully for 12 years. And it took me a long time to kind of understand how the game works. And that's why I do enjoy being on Vegas Insider. I can help people get there, and one day I think you were talking about it, you may not need me, right? One day I may, for a few years, you may follow my bets and plays, and then you kind of see how I do things. And then in 5 years, you may not need me, right? So it's one of those things where I'm just helping. I'm providing a service. I'm helping you get better at sports betting and not lose money, right? Helping you win money over a long term. The hardest thing for me, and still to this day, is a losing day, because I know that people are coming to me for information. I hate losing. I guarantee you, I hate losing more than they enjoy the winning bet. I hate it. It puts if I lose, I'm at my computer that night till 4 or 5 in the morning, just going over games. And so this is a tough business. It's a tough business to be successful in. It's a tough business to get to make money in. It's a tough business all around. So I'm just here trying to help. But all my plays are at Vegas Insider.
Yeah, no, you do a great job, and we've heard that story before, because it was about 8 years ago when you came to us, and you said, "Hey, I sucked for 4 years," and really, in any aspect of life, when you first begin, you may not think you suck, but then when you look back and you finally get good at it, you realize how bad you really were. All right, Jonathan, as always, we appreciate it. Hey, there's no show for us next week, so have a great Thanksgiving with you and your new baby Camden, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Have a great day, Chess.
Thanks again for joining us here on Wake and Bake. Jonathan, the beginning of his segment with us was a little tough, but I think it was TCU, USC, and Oregon is where he's going. He likes to tease on those overs that are really, really high. And do us a favor. Have a great Thanksgiving, and always be cashing.